preliminary board meeting of the JEA. I want to thank everyone for coming. Full house. I appreciate that. It's always nice to be thought of and all. Our colleague Wyman Wimbush will be joining us. Hopefully traffic will open up and he'll be moving as quickly as he can. At this time, I'm going to ask everyone to please stand for a moment of reflection. Following that, Chairman Townsend will lead us in the pledge. So if we take a few minutes of reflection. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Ladies and gentlemen, you have in front of you the agenda for today. We have a rather full agenda. At this time, I will accept a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
It's moved in second. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Show it unanimously. Safety briefing. Pat Malis, did I say that?
Yes, sir.
For once, I got it right. Good, thank you.
Good.
Thank you, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. In the event that we have to leave this room for any reason with an emergency, we'll be using the stairwell to the left of the elevators outside this room. We're going to exit these two back doors. Please be aware of any slips or trips as well as hazards, which would be people and chairs. Please exit in an orderly and calm manner. You're going to go down 8 flights of stairs, and as you go down those stairs, we ask that you hold the handrails for safety purposes. Once we get down to the lobby, we're going to exit the building and go to the parking lot of Ashley and Main. That's the Baptist Church parking lot. And Angie Hires, if you would please call security for me, and Monica, if you would please dial 911. And if there is somebody in the room who is able and willing to assist in doing CPR, please raise your hand. Thank you, Mike. All right. Fire extinguishers are located outside this room to the left of the elevators, and we will not be using them unless we need to clear our way to get out of here. In addition, I ask that you please turn off your cell phones, and if you do need to use the restroom, they are located to the right outside these doors. And so, everybody, I'm Pat Malis. I am the Director of Employee Services. I've been with JEA about 10 months. I work for Angie Hires, who's the Chief Human Resources Officer. Prior to coming to prior to coming to CSX, I worked at CSX. Now you know where I work.
CSX.
Prior to coming to JEA, I worked for Jabil, which is an international company. There I was the Regional Compensation Manager for the Americas as well as Southeast Asia. Prior to that, I had the opportunity to work at CSX and Merrill Lynch, and I've also worked as an independent human resources consultant. I've been in human resources for a little over 25 years, and I've my experience spans from employee relations, recruitment, compensation benefits, so I'm really excited to be here at JEA. I'm a native of Jacksonville, sort of. I've been here most of my life, so I call myself a native. Graduated from Bishop Kenny High School, as well as went on afterwards to go to the University of Florida, where I have a Bachelor of Arts degree in sociology. I'm married. I have 2 children, and just found out on Friday my youngest son's going to be going to the University of Central Florida, where his brother is. So I'll be an empty nester next year. So that's it.
Pat, thank you very much. Welcome. All right, ladies and gentlemen, on the presentations and comments, we're going to start this on an extraordinary high. Monica, William has some information for us on JD Powers.
Well,
Podium is yours.
Good
Ma'am.
afternoon. Very, very excited to share these results. I apologize that you don't have the presentation in front of you. As you are aware, JD Power released their 2014 Business Customer Satisfaction Survey results last week. And we were so excited to share the information with you that we put this together for today. So the great news is JEA moved up from the 4th quartile in 2013 to the 1st quartile in 2014. Very, very exciting. A very special thank you to the entire JEA team. I have had the privilege to be interacting with some of the J.D. Power staff and executives and other chief customer officers from utilities across the country. And this has just been really exciting, and people truly are in awe over the movement. And I'll share a little bit of the information of how we got there. Again, this is our summary slide. You'll see for the business market where we are in the 1st quartile in several of the drivers and the 2nd quartile for the others when we look nationally. Again, one of my favorite slides is showing, as in the residential market, for the business market for 2014, JEA was among one of the most improved utilities nationally, moving 63 points compared to our 2013 results. This is one of my favorite slides. It is our before and after for the South Midsize. You will see in 2013 overall customer satisfaction, JEA was second to the lowest. You'll see in 2014, JEA is second to the top for the South Midsize utilities. Again, one of the other items that we're very proud of, we took a look at the participating utilities in the state of Florida. These are investor-owned utilities as well as municipal utilities, and you will see JEA ranked the highest in the state of Florida amongst our business customers. So one of the big questions I have received is, how did you make that movement? How did we move from bottom to top? And this slide gives you that picture, and it shows you 619 was our rating from 2013 to 682. You'll see the 3 drivers that gained almost 60 or over 64% of our improvement points were in power quality and reliability. So a big thank you to Mike and his team for the work that they have done to help in that, as well as price. I think working very hard to keep our prices stable, to communicate and demonstrate value to our customers, and to help empower them and show them how they have control on the bill. Special thanks to Melissa and her team and all the work of Treasury to help in a time when prices and the cost of doing business is going up, still working to keep our prices flat. And then communication. We talk a lot about communication. That's very important to our customers, and we saw significant movement there as well. What I'd like to point out is that we had movement in every driver, and I really see that as one of the distinguishing factors of our performance nationally. Specifically, if you want to look at where the largest gains were for specific attributes, fairness in pricing, and efforts to get feedback from our customers. We talk a lot about asking our customers for feedback, listening to them, and that was very much reflected here. I thought this might be a nice slide to put and to show. These are verbatims from the survey and verbatims from our customers and their positive responses and how they feel about JEA's service. Providing phenomenal quality energy services, fair rates, reliable, fast service, treat our customers well, knowledgeable. So a lot of great feedback from our customers. And then just to end, I have learned about Wordles. So this is a Wordle.
How do you spell that?
WURDLE. There's actually an app out there that you can do this. So we took all of the comments, the positive comments from our J.D. Power customer survey, and we used this Wordle. And this basically tells you the words, the larger it is,
Where are we going?
the larger the word is, the
Ron,
more
I think
frequently
our
it
time
was
is over.
used.
I think this is an age thing.
So,
I'm with you, my friend, I'm with you.
anyhow, I just think it's neat to see the focus on reliability, customer service, good, power, and these are just the words to give you a picture of what our customers shared in their comments. So with that, just a huge congratulations and thank you to all of our JEA employees and the entire team, because this would not be possible without really the entire team engaged. So.
Job well done. Good
Monica,
stuff.
congratulations, that's just awesome. Colleagues, comments, anything?
No, I just learned something.
Wow.
Wordle.
Admittedly, I did too.
Good, thank you.
So-
Thank
Good,
you.
thank you.
Please, on behalf of the board, please let them know how proud we are. This was a team effort.
Absolutely.
Everyone. I mean, it just, congratulations. The one slide, I think it's the second slide. That one, correct, that.
It's amazing.
I mean, they say a picture's worth 1,000
Yep.
words. That's it, right there. I mean, if there wasn't anything, if everyone just got a small one up for their desk and, the old shake and bake commercial, I helped. That's it. That's it, right there. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just, and it's quite obvious, but recognizing that when we had a change at the top, that was clearly the number one priority for Mr. McElroy. So obviously, the folks out there get kudos, but let's not forget that we're starting.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Mark, you've done good. Thank you. Comments from the public? We have one card. Madeline Rubin. If you would welcome, Ms. Rubin, if you would state for the record your address and for the record. Thank you.
Hi, my name is
Welcome.
Madeline Rubin. This is my husband, Ned Rubin. He might come up in a few minutes or a couple of minutes.
We have
And my
3
address
minutes.
is 5318 Heronview Drive, Jacksonville, 32257.
Thank you.
And I'm here to help y'all be first in line instead of second. That's my goal.
All right.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to give you a little bit of background about us. We're partially retired, and we have paid our bills, our JEA bills and every other bill, earlier on time for years. I'm a native Jacksonvillian. Ned's from Maryland. And I brought him down here because Jacksonville's such a wonderful town, and I've appreciated it for years. My family's been here for many years. I know Jimmy, actually my older brother knows Jimmy, and I don't know if he's related to you. Jimmy Hightower?
No,
No?
he's a successful part of the family.
Okay. But anyway.
He doesn't
and
have
that-
anything, he's the one that doesn't have anything on his ankle like mine.
Oh, okay. But I wanted to let y'all know that, not to get preferential treatment, but just to let you know how much I value and love Jacksonville and how long I have had a chance to be bonded to it. Because my family's been in the area since the 1850s. So anyway, we went along and continued to pay our JEA bill, and I would have been one of the ones on the list in September, early September, to be totally satisfied with JEA. But when we got our October bill, it jumped from about $175 to $400. Didn't understand it, called up, and they said, well, we have changed, let's see, they said, did you get the letter? I said, no, I didn't get a letter, I didn't see a letter. But, it could have been my fault, because as you know, when you get bills, you don't always look in the extra stuff, you just look at the bill. So it says, talks about valued customer, changes are being made throughout the JEA service area to our meter reading process to reduce costs and increase efficiencies. Due to a one-time occurrence, the number of bills is going to increase. So even if I had seen this and had read it, it probably wouldn't have fazed me much. I said, okay. I would have said, well, maybe my bill's going to increase a little bit. But anyway, so when I called the representative, she gave me three choices. I said, we're not we're partially retired, we're not ready to pay a double JEA bill because we've got a solar hot water heater. We've done a lot of things that we could to reduce the bill. And so she said, your choice is to show that you're late, and that meant to ruin my credit, to pay in full, and that wasn't a workable option. She said, or you can get on a payment plan, and but if you get on the payment plan, you get your electric and water turned off immediately if you don't pay. Well, I paid on time or early for many, many, many years, never being late. I said, okay, that should work for me. Well, for 3 months that did work for me, but here I am, and this month we had a sick animal, and our animals are like our family members, and we also I put everything on a bill pay. So when you put everything on a bill pay, you automatically look in a different section and then just put the bills up. And so, lo and behold, I was late on the payment, and our electric and water was turned off suddenly, immediately. And we had no idea what was going on because we said we always pay, and my husband grabbed the guy because we happened to be there at the time, and he said, yeah, because of non-payment. You're here because of non-payment. And I'm saying, well, gosh, if that happens to us who have paid our bills regularly for years and years and years, what happens to the poor people that don't know what's going on? And my point being that I don't think y'all should have this program anymore where somebody pays, where you put them in a box and they have to make payments on time or else they're cut off immediately. Can't use electric, can't call if you have a cordless phone, you can't use the restroom, can't, these days and times it's hard to do anything. My mother was raised on a farm, she would have known how to handle it. And I had a little bit of an idea, but still, it's not an easy thing to manage in this day and time when you're just cut off immediately. And so I suggest that y'all not have that program anymore, where you just, okay, if you don't pay, you're gone. And I don't think that I should have been treated that way anyway. I didn't ask for my bill to be doubled at that point in time. So that's what I'm asking y'all to do, is just to do away with that. And as an alternative, what y'all could do is you could have an automatic system where you at least reminded the person. If I had been reminded in this difficult month, I would have immediately paid the bill, had the money to pay the bill, and would have done it.
Ms. Rubin, thank you for your presentation, and thank you for sharing this. I'm going to request, since we have our Chief Customer Officer here, Monica Whiting, if you wouldn't mind spending some time with the Rubins, and let's see if we can help or walk, kind of hear this, because I think. But thank you for coming in, and thank you for sharing that information. And
You're welcome.
We'll make it a part of the record. So Monica is right there behind you, so at y'all's convenience, we'll do that. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Thank you. Council liaisons, Bill Bishop. Okay, will he be back? No. He won't be back. All right. He was here for this morning. Okay, under board consideration, if y'all will look in our consent agenda, if you will notice that items Roman numeral 3A1 requires actions, and items 2 through 6 are provided for information. I'm going to ask for a motion to approve items Roman numeral 3A and 1.
So moved.
And
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And items Roman numeral 3A2 through 7 for information. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So it's the strategic discussions, bi-monthly financial presentations. Melissa Dykes, Chief Financial Officer. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Mr. Chairman, you typically ask me for good news in these presentations, and so I'm very happy to report it was cold in January.
Yes, it was.
I'll walk through the financial metrics for this month. Debt service coverage is projected to be 2.3 times in the electric system. So within our targets of our policy, 232 days of liquidity, which is within our target of 150 to 250 days. That reflects the median utility liquidity at our credit rating. Of that, 131 days is cash, and projecting our debt to asset ratio to continue to decrease down to 75% at the end of this fiscal year. Water and sewer system, 2.3 times debt service coverage, 107 days of cash, and declining debt to asset ratio to 58% at the end of the fiscal year. Unit sales, this is our bright spot for this presentation. Year over year, in the electric system, we are up 4.1%. The month of January alone was an extraordinary sales month given the weather that we had in January. Here's where it's a little bit more challenging. We do a calculation to weather adjust sales, so we get away from the one-time anomalies that are a result of temporary weather patterns and drill down to see what's actually happening. Year to date, our sales are still declining. We're down about 1% year over year on a weather adjusted basis. In order for us to get to flat sales, year over year, we would have to see new meters growing at 2.5% per year. And we're still below 2% right now. We're about 1.8% growth on new meters. So we've got some growth to see there in order to offset the efficiency gains that we're seeing in our service territory. And this is a graphical look at that same data that was presented on the table on the prior page. Interestingly, we typically peak in the January-February time frame in the winter, but we get the highest sales in our system in the summertime. So hoping for a hot summer this summer coming up. From a financial perspective, we talked about sales. I want to spend a couple minutes talking about fuel. We had last year at this time been prepared to recommend a fuel credit because we were seeing fuel expenses come in below our budget for fuel for last year. We're a bit challenged in that area this year. We're seeing higher than expected natural gas prices, and that's changed our fuel projection. We're down about $33 million over the past just 2 months alone. And so while that continues to give us some cushion with respect to our target in the fuel fund, what we'd like to request from the board is that we wait another month or two, see how fuel shapes up. Interestingly, we're dispatching solid fuel at pretty consistently below where our natural gas units are dispatching because gas prices are remaining high. And so we'd like to see how that progresses in the market. I also just wanted to remind the board the way that the fuel fund works from a revenues and expense perspective. And from a rates perspective, it functions independently of the rest of our financials, and that's governed by federal and state law and our Public Service Commission. When we set fuel rates, those rates are passed through to our customers. So if we experience costs that are lower than we're projecting, then we would rebate that back to our customers in the form of a one-time credit or in the form of a lower fuel rate. And vice versa, if our fuel costs are higher than expected, then we would do a fuel rate adjustment. That functions as a pass-through on that portion of our balance sheet. In terms of non-fuel performance, we do see a revenue gap because of versus budget of $23 million this year, and that's even including the good January that we've had. We'll make that up through a menu of options. We're coming in about $6 million in our projection of lower O&M expenses, about $9 million better on capital, and about $6 million on non-fuel purchase power. So we've got ways to make that up. It's a little bit less dire than the picture from last year because we're helped by a good January, but we're continuing to monitor that situation. In the water and sewer system, it's been cold and rainy, and so that's the less bright spot from a financial perspective. We've got more days of rain and more inches of rain year to date than we had last year, and so that's challenged us from a sales perspective. And year to date, sales in the water and sewer system are down about 4%. And that's a graphical picture of where we're projecting we're going to end up at the end of the year versus where we've been in prior years. If you look all the way to the far right, you can see how much, on trend, sales have continued to decline in the water and sewer system. In terms of the revenues and expenses in the water and sewer system, we are continuing to see growth in new meters in water and sewer at similar rates in the electric system. So while we're about 2.6% below budget, our rate structure in water and sewer has really helped cushion our revenues from looking at an actuals versus budget perspective. We're about $3 million under on revenues, and that's offset by about $2 million of projected savings in O&M, and we expect that $2 million to continue to grow over the course of the year. Looking at our debt picture in the review that we do each month, we are, as we mentioned, projected to move to 75% debt to asset ratio in the electric system, 58% in water and sewer system. Last year, we were able to pay down about $220 million in the electric system, $69 million in the combination of the water and sewer system and the district energy system. So continuing to work down this very high debt ratio, which is an outlier from a credit perspective versus our peers. Our debt composition has got very little changes in it versus this page last month. But as a review, we're paying down about $239 million of debt this year. And weighted average interest rates are unchanged versus last month's report. In the variable rate debt risk analysis, we do have a couple of credit facilities that are coming due, so this page will continue to evolve over the course of this year as we look for renewals with those banks and continuing to monitor credit quality of a number of our counterparties with respect to interest rate swaps. And no change in our credit ratings since last month's report.
Yet.
There's an additional slide. Oh, no, we've got one more, sorry. In our investments portfolio, our yield is down about 1 basis point versus last month just due to the maturity of some of the investments in our portfolio rolling off and some new investments rolling on, but still some significant improvement over yields last year. I've provided an additional page in this presentation to the board as a reminder of the impact of utility rates in our community. This page reflects data that was gathered as part of the J.D. Power survey and is reported data from our customers on income levels and utility bills as a percentage of their income. As a reminder, our Public Service Commission limits, from a rate-making perspective, our ability to subsidize customers. We have to set rates equal for everyone without the ability to subsidize those who are low income. And so as a result, what you see is that our low-income customers, as a percentage of income, are paying more in their utility bills. This is exacerbated. It's not a dollar-for-dollar impact. It's not a percentage impact. With the low-income customers in our community, those are the people who are least able to afford things like lighting upgrades and efficiency upgrades to their homes and windows and new appliances and other things that are making our customer base as a whole more efficient. And so that further exacerbates the impact on low-income customers. In fact, if you look at a family of four making $100,000 a year, as a percentage of income, their utility bill is about 2%. At the poverty level, that jumps to nearly 8%. It's 4 times. So as we think about rate changes, any rate changes that we may make in our utility system are impacting our low-income customers as a percentage of income 4 times as much as other customers in our system.
Do you have, roughly tell us the percentage of our customers that rely on these certain parameters? I mean, is it 25 to 55,000? Is that half of our population, or is it a third? I'm just curious about how many people we're talking about.
That's a great question. I don't have the data handy, but I can provide it next
Just
month
be helpful to have
as an
that
update.
information.
Melissa,
Yes,
Melissa, do you, I think we had it for the rating agency presentation, but do you know the median income in Duval County? So we can kind of, that might
From
address
memory,
the-
and not to be quoted, but from memory, I think it's 53,000.
Okay.
How much?
53.
73?
50 is the median income in
53.
Duval County, 53.
Yeah.
Melissa, how are other utilities addressing this inequity based upon income, or are they?
Well, it's a good question. In the state of Florida, the Public Service Commission explicitly says that you can't have low-income programs. So we have third-party programs that we can refer customers to even in our own service territory. We provide energy audits for low-income customers, but we're hamstrung from a regulatory perspective. That's not true in every state. So California, for example, has rate setting that explicitly does subsidize low-income customers, and they qualify by providing certifications that they're below the poverty line or below a percentage of the poverty line.
Are you aware of any cities that have set aside funds on their side to assist the poor? For example, I know we can't as JEA, but part of the spend that we send to them could be set aside for this type of thing. The city's not handcuffed the way we are, if I understand the rules correctly.
It's a good question. We, a number of low-income customers in our service territory and throughout the state of Florida receive federal funding for utility bills if they fall below a certain income level. I'm not familiar with city programs that would fund something similar, but I can investigate.
Paul, would you speak, didn't we have a couple, 3 years ago, wasn't there a sum of money to make houses more energy efficient, and was that one of those stimulus dollars, or where did those dollars come
Well,
from?
that was our low-income program through our DSM.
Which DSM?
or, Demand Side Management Program.
Okay, fine,
Demand
yeah,
Side Management
yeah,
Conservation. And we continue with that today. That's a
Okay.
portion of that program. We've gotten to several thousand homes over the last number
Okay,
of
okay,
years to
okay,
try to
okay.
improve the efficiency. But
Yeah, okay, I thought we were, okay.
Comments? Additional comments?
I got one more question.
Sure.
To back up, I didn't want to interrupt you on the way there. But when you're speaking about the meter growth being below budget, is the budget based upon projections that you made or projections from an industry you got from someplace?
We budget based on sales projections. We don't
Right.
budget projections in terms of meter growth. And what our budget is based on is a combination of industry data sources and our actual experience in our service territory.
Okay.
So we, at this point, last year we budgeted 12,250 in terms of our 12,250,000 megawatt hours of sales in our service territory, and we look like we're going to come in just below that this year. We're budgeting 12 million looking forward to next year, and we have a load research group internally, and they have determined that as the weather normalized level of sales for our service territory.
I'm going to ask you a question. I'll preface it with this. How accurate are those projections, based upon everything? The reason I'm asking is because, I've seen some numbers where folks are projecting a 1% to 2% growth over the next couple of years, and, based upon the experts, and I'm asking how accurate are those, based upon what you've seen in the previous years?
Well, on a short-term basis, they're as accurate as predicting the weather. It's because the weather is the single biggest driver of our sales, and so on a longer-term basis, they're typically more accurate than that. But on a shorter-term basis, it's because we're so weather-driven. It's hard to pin down an exact number in terms of a projection. What I did find interesting from our load research group, though, is that in order for us to, given the efficiencies that are happening in our service territory, on a weather-adjusted basis, for us to be flat in sales, we have to see a 2.5% growth in number of meters. And we're just, in order for us to be flat in terms of sales versus last year, we need to see a 2.5% growth in the number of meters. And we're just not seeing that yet.
In addition to housing and I guess businesses, what other ways do meters grow?
They can grow through economic development and bringing new jobs to our
Yeah.
area and housing expansion, and that's.
And we'd have to get 2.5% increase in order to remain flat with last year.
Yes. It's a reflection of our median residential customer had used, 7 years ago, was using 1,300 kilowatt hours a month. And we are below 1,000 now.
We're doing a great job in conservation. I mean, we JEA that is, that's Jane Upton, that's her fault.
So offsetting that decline or that increase in efficiency, we need to see more meters coming to our service territory.
Well, to your credit, I've never seen a business budget yet that didn't have variances. I mean, it's not a science, it's an
Yeah.
art, and you try to come in as well as you can,
It's based
and
on
you
this
adjust
information.
as you go. And the closer you get to the end, you know what your adjustments are. And that's obviously what you're saying is we're seeing a lot more efficiencies than we have in the past, and that's continuing. So that's been one of the challenges that we have, and it looks like it's going to continue, that I think we have to expect that this is not just a weather aberration. This is a trend.
Right,
Yep.
it's here to stay.
If I may point to the accuracy of these anomalies in forecasting, in 2008, we we sold 14 million megawatt hours, and as Melissa pointed out, last year was 12 million megawatt hours, when in 2008, we projected at this time we would be selling 16 million megawatt hours. And that was from the EIA that said we were going to grow at 2 to 3%. So we're at sort of, if we had taken that and built to that, we would have had capacity for 16, and we're struggling to get to 12. And I think one of the things that we've got to recognize, and it's very important, that we are chasing the forecast here. There are more efficiencies being gained in our economy than we can really account for. One of the latest ones that I would indicate, and I would digress a little bit here, is that what we're chasing, the push to mobile devices, and I hadn't thought this one through, but the push to mobile devices now has forced technology to become far more energy efficient for battery life. It's not just the battery life, it's the efficiency of using the electricity from the battery that makes those mobile devices work. That is now being transferred to home devices. So that when you had 10 years ago, you had a regular TV set that was using a unit of electricity. We went to big screen TVs, plasma TVs, that they were using 5 units of electricity. We saw that growth. Now, with LEDs, we're seeing a half a unit of electricity. And so we're chasing this electricity consumption and efficiency down. And I think that, when you look at less than 1% in terms of EIA, that's a national average, so you got the regional anomalies there. But I think that's just a white flag for saying zero, and we're all going to work together and watch this thing go.
Just as an example, I just bought a small TV for my kitchen, and it said it would cost $4.65 a year to run
Yes.
on the sticker.
Yep.
It's amazing.
Small, yeah.
A year.
Any other questions?
No, I'm the part that I just need to sit here one more time, because I think because again, I don't want to go into the public domain as I just stated outside there, and I don't want to do that, but I think that is a stunning comment that you said of what we would have to see in growth on that in order just to stay flat. So would you, I'm not trying to, excuse my, not to be disrespectful, not to play with you, but I just walk us through that, because it is such a stunning statement that as we sit here and we're looking at projections and we're going to be looking at this down the road, I think that is one of the most powerful statements that I've heard from you in a long time, because I think
We're not
that kind
gonna
of
be
puts into
flat.
context. I mean,
We're not going to be flat.
No.
Yeah, so would you, just make sure that we understand that. Maybe I'm the only.
These are scary numbers to me. So, and
You
at
should be
some
up here on
point,
this side.
at some point, I believe we're going to get to the bottom and we'll start to grow again. I don't know when that happens, and I don't know what technology evolution is going to happen between now and then that might push that out. But right now, what our load research group says is that given the efficiency gains and the adoption of more efficient technologies in our service territory, we need to see growth of new meters of 2.5% a year in order to stay flat on sales on a weather-adjusted basis.
That's 10,000 meters.
10,000 meters.
10,000.
Well,
Thank you.
yes,
Thank
that's
you.
appropriate.
I gave you the good news first, sorry.
Melissa, we always say we want to hear the math. That's what we want to hear from you, is the math. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much. JEA Water Waste Reclaimed Development Policies. Renetta Marshall, who is Director of Wastewater Grid Project Engineering. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
And this is, Ms. Marshall is going to, her presentation, and there will be a presentation and then a need for action. Thank you.
I'm here today to talk about water and wastewater development policies. The last time that this was brought before the board was about 6 months ago at the August 20th board meeting, and at that time, my Vice President, Mr. Roach, brought that before you. technical difficulties here. Okay. Okay. Following the agenda, when this was brought before you in August, we're going to just recap that very briefly. And the two policies that are being brought for the board's consideration for action with recommended changes is the JEA cost participation policy and the developer cost recovery policy. And we'll go into detail later in the presentation. I'm also going to talk about what has happened after the August board meeting as far as actions that staff has taken to communicate the recommended changes, and then finally going to summarize and go over what the proposed action is. The catalyst for bringing forth these policies is that we have seen growth as far as development is concerned. Not major growth, but after the economic turndown in 2008, we have seen some increases as far as development, as far as plans that we have reviewed, and developments that had stalled after 2008 are slowly coming back. And so with that, we want to make sure that the policies that are in place to support that development are clear. Back in August, when we brought this before you, we gave just a little primer, if you will, as far as how is infrastructure developed. And you have the on-site infrastructure, whether that is a commercial development or a residential, that's termed on-site. The policies that we're here to talk about today is related to the off-site infrastructure. Basically, that would be the infrastructure that is not within the footprint of the development, but that would be, for lack of a better term, within a transmission corridor. We would build the water and the wastewater lines. And finally, we also brought before you, gave you a summary of our development team and talked about how we received input as far as stakeholder input is concerned, and also what we did to reach out to our customers. And our customers, of course, include the developers, the builders, the engineers. And then at that time, we brought forth gave a general overview of what the cost participation policy and cost recovery policy were. Okay, let's get into a little detail as far as a cost participation policy. Now, this policy provides a mechanism for JEA to pay a developer to upsize their off-site, their water, their wastewater, or their reuse infrastructure. And the reason that we provide this mechanism is, say our master plan calls for a larger size piece of infrastructure than would support the development. So JEA would provide this cost participation procedure and would pay the incremental cost for upsizing the pipe. So say the off-site infrastructure was for a 10-inch main for that development. However, if we looked out and we look at the regional growth and future development coming in, and we said we need a 16-inch main, we would pay for that construction cost. Now, the changes that we're recommending to this policy are relatively minor. We want to make sure that we have clarity, and so the title, which was a developer agreement, we changed that to JEA cost participation policy. That is a recommendation. We also wanted to clarify the difference between this policy and the cost recovery policy. And finally, we also wanted to include reclaimed water. While it wasn't specifically excluded, we wanted to make that explicit that it was included. Our next policy is the developer cost recovery policy. And what this policy does, it provides a mechanism for a developer to recoup their costs from, I'll call it subsequent developers, that would later come in and tie into the off-site infrastructure. Now, this is a financial investment that is made by the developer. It's not made by JEA. JEA will establish the boundaries for the future developments that would tie into this line, and we would administer the agreements for a 5% fee. This applies to connections that are greater than 1,000 gallons per day. So this is meant for the larger developments, not for a single-family home, if you will. Now, the Public Utilities Department had cost recovery agreements when they came over to JEA in 1997, and we brought out those agreements. And since that time, we've executed one agreement that was done in December of 2008, and that was at the same time of the economic downturn, and so the development was never constructed. The changes that we're recommending is to simplify the time period for the recovery. Currently, we have a sliding scale of 5 to 10 years, and this can be renewed with indefinite renewals. And what we're recommending is that this be for a 10-year fixed period. We also want to remove the language that offered a 45% additional recovery option. We wanted to increase the minimum investment from $100,000 to $500,000 per utility, recognizing the regional nature of the cost recovery. And we wanted to make this available to the initial developer when they're utilizing less than 75% of the hydraulic capacity. And also we wanted to clarify that the developments, when they do come in, not only is it for their potable demand, but also for their fire flow, and include that in the calculation. And lastly, differentiate the difference between this policy and the cost participation policy. Now, since the last time that this was brought before the board, we have reached out to our different stakeholders. We had a meeting with the Northeast Florida Builders Association, and that was back in October of last year. And we also had a workshop. We invited the engineering consulting firms in, and that was in November. NEFA, the Northeast Florida Builders Association, did give us some comments where they were concerned about the pump station costs for smaller infill developments. And we are addressing that with a separate work group. We also had a benchmarking study that was done by Public Resources Management Group, where we gathered data from other utilities that also had developer cost recovery policies. And we had 9 utilities, and 5 of those did have these policies. The majority of those focus on large regional developments, and 100% calculated based on the hydraulic share, such as JEA does. 80% did include the fire flow demand, such as what we're recommending in their calculation. And the recovery period ranged from 6 to 12 years, and our recommendation is for 10 years, so it falls right within that. And just to summarize, again, this was brought before you in August 20th. Since that time, we have performed outreach, held the workshop, and evaluated other cities as far as what they're doing, other utilities. So the recommendation for the JEA cost participation policy and the developer cost recovery policy is that the board approve the recommended changes. And I'm here to take any questions.
Thank you. You've heard the recommendation coming from the chair, from the presenter. The chair has stepped out of the room, so in his absence, I'll ask if there's a motion for acceptance.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
It's been moved and second. Is there any discussion or comment?
Madam Vice Chair, I just had a question on the cost recovery. That's really JEA administering as opposed to actually any revenue or funds being paid out by JEA, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
That's exactly right.
Okay, and that's all I want to
Okay.
clarify.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Chairman, we're in the middle, excuse me, of voting on the issue before us. The recommendation has been moved and seconded. We've had discussion, and we're ready for the question.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Show it pass unanimously.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much. Thank you for your presentation. Vicki Cavey, Strategic Plan Implementation Update, first quarter, Director of Strategy Development and Execution.
Yes, sir.
How are you
Pleasure to
doing?
be here.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And if I remember, last time we saw you, were in there when we were rolling out our strategic plan, which, by the way, thank you for your leadership during that time.
What a wonderful day that was, I have to say, and it has been a fabulous 3 months. And I am here to update you on the progress that we have had on those initiatives and to let you know the power of an aligned and an engaged workforce. And I think that's what we have now, and it's really wonderful.
Thank you.
First of all, I want to draw your attention to where we are in the process. You know, we launched 3 or 4 months ago. We said we'd be back every quarter to update you, and we've been updating our employees. We held our first quarterly extended leadership team meeting on January 27th, and at that meeting, we went over all of our metrics, talked about our best practices and any problems we might be having, and then we're going to be doing mini cascades within the organization, which is communicating the exact same information to each and every employee within the JEA. We have taken videos at that event, similar to what we showed you when we rolled out the strategy, and those are going to be starting to be shown this week and finished by the beginning of March. Just to refresh you on our mission, I think you know these, but energizing our community through high-value energy and water solutions. Our vision is to be, of course, a premier service provider, valued asset, and a vital partner in advancing our community. And all of our values, safety, service, growth squared, accountability, and all of this done with integrity. Just to go over our initiatives: earning customer loyalty, delivering business excellence, and developing an unbeatable team. And under each of those, we have 3 areas of focus. And with each one of those areas of focus, we have commitments to action and metrics. And in this particular presentation, I have chosen to go over just the metrics with you. Now this one, you've already seen. All the metrics on our customer satisfaction come directly from J.D. Powers. And there's an old saying, if you're a runner, the speed of the leader determines the speed of the pack. And we've got some awful quick leaders, and we are developing leaders at every level. And I think that is that shows up in this initiative even more than most. And it's a great pleasure to see our employees engaged in customer satisfaction the way we are. The second initiative is delivering business excellence. Now, some of this you've already heard, but our revenue growth, we want to increase of 2% in weather-normalized data. Electric, as Melissa said earlier, is down 1% when you adjust for weather. We are still trying to determine how we are going to weather normalize the water. That is a new metric that has not been done by us before, so we are currently still developing that. The customer growth, this is an interesting one. On the electric meters, we have seen 2,062 new meters installed, and water, 2,423. Now, what's interesting is a lot of those new meters probably are not turning yet. They might be requests for new meters. If you've noticed a lot of the apartments and condos going up specifically around the town center, an awful lot of water and electric meters go in there. Nocatee is starting to build, but I don't know if those meters are turning yet. So they are being installed and maybe not turning yet. The other thing we're going to do is drill down into this data to see if these are people moving, which would be hard to track, or if they are indeed new meters with people moving into the area. So that's going to be a little harder to track. The last one was reducing unbilled production or metering to recover $1 million in additional revenue from water and sewer and electric in 2014. We are developing this metric 90 days in, still looking at how much we use independently and where our losses are. So that is under development, but I feel it's going to be on track. The second area is our rate competitiveness. We are now in the second quartile on the electric rates and still in the third quartile in water. Some of our cost performance, I know you see this a lot from Mike and Brian almost every board meeting, so I won't go into that, but we're doing pretty good there. The only one that's in red right now is our fuel at $39.76 per megawatt hour. Our debt-to-asset ratio, Melissa has just mentioned this to you. Electric is currently standing at 76.3 and water's at 58.7. We want to get those down to 71 and 58% respectively by fiscal year 15. The third area here is our CME 5 index. To refresh your memory on improving our operational performance, CME stands for Customers Experiencing Multiple Interruptions More Than 5 Times, and those interruptions are greater than a minute. So this is a new metric for JEA. The investor-owned utilities track this and have been tracking it for the Public Service Commission. To our knowledge, I think that we are the only municipal that's tracking it now. So we have our baseline at 3.05%. Our first quarter, we're at 3.06%, so running about the same as we did last year. However, this has helped us to look at our service territory differently. Mike and his group have developed a map which shows us where our customer outages are. I think you may have seen that, and it's pretty extraordinary when you look at it in that light. So that has helped us tremendously. Our boil water incidents, our target for quarter one was 8. We just did a straight line progression on this. We don't want to have any more, reduce it rather, and no more than we did, of course, in fiscal year 13, and reduce it by 5% per year. We've only had 3 in the first quarter. And down on our permit compliance, we have had our exceedances of 7, and our straight line would have us at 8. So we're doing very well on both of those. Now to our third initiative of developing an unbeatable team. I wanted to tell you, when we had our ELT meeting on January 27th, we are bringing in industry experts to speak to us and have an education component. And the person that we brought in for this particular initiative was a woman by the name of Sue Hart from Wright Management Associates. She spoke to us about how to engage a workforce and the power of an engaged workforce. And it was a really wonderful presentation. And this is a really strong area for JEA, and we have a lot of ability to grow here. So I look forward to updating you in the future with even greater metrics, because a lot of these are under development in our unbeatable team. So our offer attractiveness. We want a 90% acceptance rate on in-range offers to our top-ranked candidates. Fiscal year 13, when we looked at the baseline, we had an 80% acceptance rate. The first quarter of this year, we had 94%. Our workplace survey, we conducted our first workplace survey in a while, and our baseline was established at 71%. We want to see at the end of the year, when we do this survey again, a 10% increase, which would put us at 78%. So that one would be updated at the time we do the next survey. We also want to see consistent differentiation of high and low performers. We've decided 10% in the high category, 80% in the medium category, and 10% in the low. Now that will be adjusted and normalized at the end of the year after everyone's reviews are done. Facilitate and expect employee growth. We are developing competencies that will run the gamut across JEA for all employees, and we are developing our baseline for fiscal year 14. And we want to see a 10% increase in that baseline of 15 over 14. So that is in process. We would like to see also a 10% increase in fiscal year 15 over 14 baseline of career enrichment opportunities. That would be training, special projects, or rotational assignments. A lot of changes are being done to allow these to happen, so our baseline is in process. Our individual development plans, we would like to have them completed for 85% of our employees by the end of this fiscal year. Human Relations has developed our standard for this, for the individual development plans, and it's been rolled out, so you'll start seeing those numbers climb, and we did this also as a linear progression. Ensuring a safe, healthy, and ethical workplace. Safety. Of course, we want to have our target of 1.2. Unfortunately, we're at 2.68 this quarter, as I'm sure you're aware. So we are looking at ways to improve that across the entire organization. Wellness. In our wellness area, our metrics are to have a 10% reduction in inflation-adjusted claims cost and a 10% increase in wellness programs participation. So this first quarter, we stood at $7.15 million in claims cost, and we are determining how we're going to measure the wellness participation. The reason we put that in there is because different programs roll out at different times of the year, so that may be a cumulative number as opposed to a quarterly number. It would be more representative of what we're doing cumulatively and annually. On ethics, we want 100% compliance with our ethics training requirements. And our baseline last year was 97.3%. In the first quarter of this year, we're already at 95.2%. So that's going very well. At the end, I just want to show you where we are and where we're going. I went over this a little in the beginning. We're in the process of doing our mini cascade. We will have another quarterly meeting on April 28th with all the top 3 levels of management within the JEA, discussing where we are and what we might need to change and how we can accelerate what were our efforts. At that time, we'll do a mid-course adjustment if we have to, and look at what we're doing and maybe modify a little bit, not too much, and then move on to July. And then, starting in August, we're going to do it all over again. And I anticipate great results from the entire JEA and this team. It has been a wonderful experience working on this, absolutely wonderful.
Thank you, Vicki. Comments from the board?
I understand this strategic approach that we have here. One thing I haven't seen yet, and last year we had certain metrics by which we were going to judge Paul at the end of his fiscal year. Have we produced those yet so that we have those measurables? I mean, some of that might be included in this, but have we seen those
They're coming to
metrics
you.
yet?
They're on their way to you.
All right.
They're on your way to you. And as a matter of fact, as I've even included from the feedback is meets expectation, stretch goals, the whole bit.
Okay.
So that, because I know that was one of the issues that you all were there, Paul understood that, so in that. Vicki, a couple comments. One, excellent. Just thank you for your leadership. A couple comments on page 10, sensitive to one of our challenges that are on our risk. Individual development plans completed by 85. Is part of that some of our leadership where we know succession planning is that we're really asking those folks who are in a leadership position to begin, it's not only their development plans, but if they are getting close, you know, we're fixing to pass the torch here, and we've talked about that. Is that one of the things that we're also looking for is succession planning?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, that's why they're called individual. They will be for those individuals based on their career projection here and what we think they need to do to get there.
Okay, thank you. That's really important. Thank you. And then on page 11, and this is only, I'm using my, from my own corporation, the part on the ethics, compliance with ethics training, I think when we went through the presentation, but I just wanted to restate it, is part of the ethics training of trying to develop an environment or a workplace environment that it is okay and safe to be able to say something's not right, that's not right, and you're protected.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And to know that it's safe to bring it up, and you need to bring it up.
Yes, and I think we've got, that's one of those things. You can say compliance, but if people don't feel, you know, that they're safe in doing that. And I think we talked about it at great length, but I wanted to make sure that I saw that in there. And I know that you all are working on it. I think that's an important thing. And it's unfortunate, you know, we're talking about 99% of good folks, but, you know, can't legislate morality.
No, and well said. And part of the training is to encourage and let people know how best to report any things. And that is indeed part of the training. One thing I'd like to tell you, too, is our consultants that are working with us on this are now using us as a national best practices model in some of our videos from our rollout that we did.
Fantastic.
That sounds like a revenue opportunity.
Maybe, and geez, anyway, a revenue opportunity? Wow, should I have charged them for that? Let me think about that.
Absolutely.
I can't
I'll
believe
put that on my
Peter let
individual
one go
development
and didn't say that.
I beat him to it. He was
Yeah,
there.
He was good.
Thank you, Vicki.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, thanks for all the good work that's being
Thank
done. Rating agency new issue reports in conjunction with the upcoming bulk power supply systems refund bond shear 4 project issue series 2014A. Wow.
I gotta work on those
I know,
titles.
I'm supposed to restate this for the record, you know, I gotta do small letter words here for me.
There's your 5 minutes.
Exactly. The bulk power supply system bonds are used to finance Plant Shearer up in Georgia, so just so you know which ones we're talking about. You've got a package in your board books that provide the full text of the ratings reports. There's also a news article that was printed in the Bond Buyer, which is the publication that's probably the most widely read of the ones that have covered JEA over recent weeks by our investor community. So that's to provide you some background with what the financial community is reading about JEA. The good news is our ratings were affirmed by all 3 agencies in connection with this offering. The piece of this that I wanted to highlight is there are some new comments that have appeared in these ratings reports that raise credit concerns with respect to JEA. So I'm going to just read a couple of quotes just to make sure you're aware of what the rating agencies are now commenting on in terms of their outlook for us. Fitch says the recent proposal made by the City of Jacksonville's administration to increase JEA's already sizable transfers made annually to the city is a credit concern. Absent a corresponding rate increase or expenditure reductions, increasing the transfer amount by the proposed $40 million would weaken the authority's net operating margins and exert downward pressure on the rating. From Moody's, they say the City of Jacksonville Mayor Alvin Brown is exploring the possibility of increasing JEA's annual transfer payments to the city by as much as $40 million to help address the underfunded status of the city's police and fire pension fund. JEA has historically paid higher than industry average transfer payments by formula to Jacksonville compared to its peers. Because Moody's considers the transfer payments as equivalent to an operating expense, any increase in such payments would reduce annual debt service coverage ratios, a credit negative, unless otherwise mitigated by sales growth, cost reductions, or rate increases. And Standard & Poor's says we don't expect to raise or lower the ratings within our 2-year outlook period. That's the stable outlook they've provided on our rating. However, we are monitoring recent press reports that relate to the City of Jacksonville, is exploring having JEA make substantial multi-year contributions to the city to address its sizable pension shortfall. And we will assess whether this initiative has traction and, if so, its financial implications for the utility. So just to provide heightened awareness about a new credit concern that's been highlighted by all 3 credit rating agencies in connection with our offering. I also want to provide a quick update on...
Would you just repeat the cost reduction, revenue increase, or rate increase? Were those the 3 things you mentioned?
In the Moody's comments, they say that the increase in payments is a credit negative unless otherwise mitigated by sales growth, cost reductions, or rate increases.
Okay, thank you.
With respect to timing of this offering, we were originally scheduled to be in the market tomorrow with this, and given some recent concerns that have been raised about disclosure-related issues, we wanted to give ourselves some time to evaluate the recent media coverage and coverage that we're expecting over the next few days and have delayed this offering for a few weeks.
Smart.
Comments?
Comments? It says there's no need to comment.
Well, Melissa, just for those who may not have a finance background, can you just sort of explain how the negative impact on the credit rating would affect an offering such as what is proposed, just hypothetically?
Yeah, it's a good question. In terms of the impact on our credit rating, is your question with respect to the bonds that are being offered in the market, or with respect to JEA?
Just as a hypothetical.
Or I think we can use that as an example of a concern.
The sensitivity from our perspective is to make sure that our investors are fully informed about anything that could be a credit impact, really anything that rises to the level of materiality, positive or negative, so they can make an informed buying decision when buying our bonds. Thus far, the advice that we've gotten from counsel is that likely absent the media coverage on this particular issue, we probably could have not disclosed it, but it would have been sort of a question mark. And so we've elected, and especially because it was carried in national media, we've elected to go ahead and disclose that that this is going on. Now, because we've done that, and there are more developments that have happened, the disclosure that we've put out there may require updating, and that's where we've decided to take a step back. It's really to give investors a chance to be very fully informed about the credit that they're buying, and if there's something that's going on that may change our credit situation, then we need to make sure we keep them fully informed about that.
I think she may be asking that if you go from a AA to a single A, you're gonna pay a higher interest rate. It's gonna cost you more money. That's all there is to it. And if people have doubts that your credit rating is gonna hold, they are not gonna want to pay as much as they would if they thought it was stable.
And the cost of a downgrade on our existing portfolio every year is about $5 million. It's just under $5 million of a single notch downgrade. And that's absent the cost that we could lose in terms of opportunity cost to do our fuel hedging, which is also dependent on our credit rating. If we look at future borrowings, we're talking about a cost increase of about $15 million for every $100 million that we would borrow. So anything that we would do in the future would be impaired by that loss of credit rating.
Yeah. When you said on the fuels, the impact that would have when we're on the fuel hedging.
Yes, yeah, we do fuel hedging. Right now, we have very few hedges outstanding, but as we look to the future, especially as we increase our reliance on natural gas, which is a very volatile fuel, we can look at fuel hedging opportunities to just mitigate some of the risks to our customers of big swings in fuel prices going forward. The only way we can effectively do that in the financial market is to have counterparties who are willing to face our credit on the exposures that go with those hedges. And so to the extent we lose our credit rating, we could be in a position of having to post collateral, for example, on some of those hedges, which would affect our liquidity position, or we could lose counterparties that are willing to trade with us.
I think one other area of grave concern in terms of loss in the rating, we've talked prospectively. Melissa has laid out what the impact would be on our short-term or variable rate debt. That would take a hit right away. As we went to market, we would pay a higher amount. But we should also not discount the credibility that we would lose in the marketplace. We've got $5.5 billion in debt, and if you go from a AA to an A, on an item that is specifically manageable, and you choose not to or are constrained from managing it, there's a loss of investor value there of upwards of $500 million. And to earn that trust back, I just can't even imagine how long that might take.
Just a question. I know the $5.5 billion in debt. Is it conceivable to think that if we were to reduce our debt reduction, that's also negative?
Yes.
We paid less?
Yeah, in fact, the credit rating agencies, and I'll have to flip through while we're talking here, the credit rating agencies have specifically cited our debt reduction initiative as offsetting our very, very high debt load. We are an outlier from a debt-to-asset ratio perspective. We've got a very, very high debt load. But they've relied on our commitment and our board's commitment to continued debt reduction to be able to look at us holistically and keep the ratings that we have.
Okay, thank you.
Remember one thing, too. This year, I believe, we are required to put on our balance sheet our unfunded pension liability. So we have $5.5 billion in outstanding debt, but we have to add, and I'm told it's another $455 million of unfunded liability to our balance sheet. So we are back almost to $6 billion. And that's the long and the short of it. Now, some people don't want to hear that that's the picture, but that is the picture.
Yes, it is.
There is not a lot of money sloshing around here for any and every use.
Peter, that's the second stunning thing. I think that's an aha moment that we've heard today. I mean, that's math. That's, when we say it's about the math.
Arithmetic.
Yeah.
Keep it basic, yeah.
Math is fewer words, fewer letters. I get the math.
Like 4 letters versus 4
Yeah. Yeah, math. I get that one. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes. Thank you.
One other question, I think you addressed it. You mentioned this past year, we retired $239 million, basically, in debt. Is that the figure I heard?
Yes.
240?
Yeah. How did that break out? It was water and electric and water. How?
Yes, I may need to grab my pile of notes that's over there, but from memory, it was about $70 million on water and about just over 200 on electric.
Right. And the rating agency applaud our effort around that number,
Yes.
right? Has that always been the number, or have we increased that amount over time? Or what would happen if that number was decreased, before it would start be viewed as negative?
I'd have to look at a repayment history. If you look at the charts, though, that are in the finance presentation, it shows the ramp up of our debt load over time in the early to mid 2000s. And so
Right.
instead of paying off debt, we were adding debt every year to fund a very large capital program. Since then, it has been gradually coming down and is projected to continue to come down. If we make debt payments that are less than our scheduled debt payments, or if we add outstanding principal amount in years when we've committed to paying down debt, that's going to be a credit negative.
Wyman, we have almost never paid down debt until recently.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, just for the record,
Okay.
to underscore that.
Right. So to go in the opposite direction would definitely be
Yeah, I mean,
viewed
as a matter of fact, we made that a board policy. If I remember, there was a great discussion, if I remember, about the concern that was raised by people on this board is that, and I'm not saying the Rages gave us accolades, but I mean, they took that into consideration, that for those 2 years that we have done a number of things to show that we're reducing debt. Even though we are still, the ratio shouldn't be that great, but they have given us some points. I'm probably using the wrong financial words here.
I think that's exactly right. I think it's gone a long way toward mitigating our very large debt portfolio. Is the commitment to paying it down.
We have also been lucky in that we have been in a low interest rate
Right.
environment. And that is now changing. So we are actually chasing interest rates, trying to lower our debt as our interest rates are rising. Our debt carry costs are about the same as they have been because rates are rising. So we're not only trying to work the levels down, we're also trying to chase it down quicker than rates rise. And so we have some significant challenges on the balance sheet. And I have quite frankly tried to explain that to people in the administration, but I have not gotten any understanding or willingness to hear that.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. What a neat segue into the new business. Board members, as the CEO and I both stated at this point, we have new business. I wanted to share with you on an official basis, since the last time that we were together. Again, very quickly, as I think I shared in the meeting before there, and as I shared with the press outside, the issue of what we've been talking about, all this public domain is not a place where due diligence can be done. So with the help of our CEO and our senior staff, on January 31st, I sent a letter to the administration attempting to take this discussion about the pension plan out of the public domain. And again, we know the capabilities of our chairman and the limitations, so let's be upfront here. They helped me craft what I thought was a very thoughtful letter, in which we really were asking for what is it that you're trying to do so that we know specifically how we could approach this. So we did send that, and then I think afterwards I wanted to make sure that you all got it and you got a copy of that. I want to let you know that yesterday we received from the mayor, both Paul and I, we received a correspondence that outlined in writing exactly what the administration wants to do, would like us to consider, and they're referring to this as a partnership between the city of Jacksonville and JEA. It is it's a 3-page letter that's signed by the mayor with a number of attachments to this, and in it sort of lays out how they believe that we can assist them in their $40 million for 14 years. As many of you all know, thanks to the chairmanship of both Mr. Townsend and Ms. Austin, we have a process in place that is called that, and I wanted to kind of walk you through what we're going to do, and I need Jerry to give me a copy because I gave mine away. But what we have done is, in disclosure, let me say the following state comments that I want to make sure that what we're doing here. I'm formally presenting this to the board. At this time, I'm going to be asking that this presentation and their analysis of this partnership. It will be sent to senior staff. I'm asking senior staff to work collaboratively with the Audit and Finance Committee. Paul and I have tentatively met with senior staff and said, one, we want them to do a good due diligence of the proposal that was put forward, but I think in doing that, we've asked them to do a due diligence on exactly where we were. So at some point after that due diligence is done, whatever is done using our internal and external expertise that we have, it will then be sent to the Audit and Finance Committee, where I have no doubt that it will be, again, thoroughly vetted in that. Given what the analysis is, given what the due diligence has had, given what the Audit and Finance Committee will do, it will be your recommendation to send it to the full board. At the time that I will be asking the board chair of the Audit and Finance Committee to make a recommendation. If there is a recommendation, depending on if it means that whatever that will be, let's take a hypothetical. If there is a recommendation that there is merit, if there says, giving reference to what the mayor said, if there are views that it is the recommendation in order to do that, we have to have a rate hearing. Then at that time, the chairman will then ask the board to go forward and in public, and there will be multiple, we will have public hearings if in fact there's a recommendation, if that is one of the things. But if there is a recommendation for a rate hearing, given one, the issue that how it's been discussed in the public domain, given what I even believe at this point, believe the significance implication, short-term, long-term, it would be my recommendation that there would be multiple public hearings. Following those public hearings, that issue, depending on, then would come back, be up to the 7 members of this board then to make a recommendation. So at this time, I'm officially sharing back with senior staff. You all have a copy of what the mayor's administration has shared with me, but I'm officially going to give this to Paul, and Melissa and the leadership team will move forward. And we will do our due diligence that way. Mr. Chairman.
Chairman, just a question. You mentioned Finance Audit Committee meeting. We have our next scheduled meeting March 10th. You're not assuming anything will be done before then, are you?
That was the same question. I was just wondering if you were listening to the press when they asked me that question. I have no idea.
No, when I see you in the press, I get far away.
I know. And you're right. Do not put a mic to mic. Don't do that. It's not a good thing. Mr. Chairman, to be honest with you, I don't know. I do know that Melissa and her team and Paul, working with the entire leadership team, is going to be working with our underwriters, our bond counsels, everyone. But I have encouraged them and gotten full assurance. I want each member of the board to know full assurance that this will be looked at objectively, but it will be looked at with a due diligence. And hopefully when it comes to the Audit Finance Committee, any questions you have, you'll be able to have those answers.
Okay, thank you.
So I officially want to let us know where we are. Comments? So I've officially turned it over. Melissa, everyone, please go forward and due diligence, and look forward to it. And I have a copy of, if Jerry, if you wouldn't mind making sure each one of the board members get, this is what I shared with the press, our process, and what I've shared with them. I want to make sure that my colleagues get a copy of this, if you wouldn't mind.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to comment on what I believe is an excellent process that we have put in place over the last 5 or so years, and just to ask where this letter, we just received it and haven't really had an opportunity to read all 3-4 pages. Is there a time frame attached to this request?
No, I didn't see one.
Okay. All right. It just goes to the point that the chair of the Audit and Finance Committee made. I mean, we have a process, so we just want to make sure we're not blindsided in that process. If we need to accelerate the timeline, then we need to know that there's one anticipated. Just so we're on the record.
Yeah, I'm reading it.
I don't believe there's one. I read through it earlier.
It just says, we look forward to working with you to strengthen the partnership between the city of Jacksonville and our municipally owned utility, JEA. There wasn't a time frame, so.
Okay.
But I have shared when informally, just clarification is that I shared when I unofficially got the letter yesterday, I shared with them that I'm not going to tell staff. I said my first objective is that it would be transparent and it would be due diligence.
Right, and that we follow our process.
And the process, and so that was laid out. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
First of all,
Townsend?
I'd like to have a hard copy of that letter before we leave, and is it dated, by the way?
Yes,
That
it was
single-
dated.
It's in his packet.
No, not that one sheet you just had there.
Oh, no, the process.
That process, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to have a copy. Is that dated?
Yeah,
Okay.
218.
Okay, I'd like to have a hard copy of it before we leave, okay?
Yeah,
Thank you.
everybody, Jerry will make sure everybody has
Thank
a
you.
copy.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Along the questions that Director Austin asked about the time frame, at this point, I wouldn't want to assume anything. Nothing, right? So I would like to get clarification that it isn't assumed that we will work in a manner that they will be able to include and proceed with their normal budgeting process, which, for their annual budget, they need to be submitted in June and voted on timeframes, and they would expect us to have a decision made prior to that. I don't want to assume that that's their expectations are, because we've stated we're going to follow our process.
Exactly.
So we need to make it clear to them. You understand?
Melissa, you were there, Paul was here. I want to make sure that I didn't overstate yesterday. I said we have a process, both from internally, but the Finance and Audit Committee. I'm asking for clarification, and I said, we have a process, and, I want everybody to understand where we're going with this. I want to make sure I stated that correctly. You were both in
Yes,
the
I think
meeting.
that's fair that the chairman indicated we have a process. We'll go by that. Now that this has been handed to us, our first charge will be to lay out essentially a project plan, a work plan that will incorporate all of the stops along the way in terms of the analysis that we need to do. So I would think potentially by the Finance and Audit Committee meeting, we might be able to give a high-level plan of what we think we need to do. And there is a very, very large piece of work here in terms of defining a potential pension plan. And sort of, that's a big piece of work and can't be done in a short number of months.
Okay, appreciate it.
Comments, concerns? Wyman, thank you for raising that. Cynthia, thank you, Madam Chair, for that. Any other comments we do? Okay, well, we will move forward and do what we need to do. We now move to that part of the agenda for reports, and I'm going to turn, at this time, the nominating committee, I'll turn this over to Chairman Townsend.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Speaking of process, we had a meeting this morning, the current chair, past two chairs, and the purpose of the meeting was to look for the officers for next year. For 1 year. We met 11:30 noon. Good discussion, good dialogue, and that would have been, of course, Ms. Austin, Ms. Hightower, myself, so we always had good discussion, good dialogue. And I'm pleased to present that for vice chair for next year, it's our recommendation. By the way, this was unanimous. All three of our recommendations were unanimous. That Lisa Weatherby become vice chair. She's been around for almost 2 years, has participated in a couple of Finance Audit Committee, a term on the Finance Audit Committee, and also participated in 2 rating agency reviews, and we think this is by far a good selection. We'd like Helen Albee to continue her good work as secretary. And we'd like for Peter Bowers to become chairman of the Finance Audit Committee, primarily because of his strong financial backing, and he asked lots of questions, and that's a good thing. And Mr. Chairman, we're unanimous in asking you to continue your high-level and strategic direction for 1 more year. I put this as a motion, and I guess would this be effective with the March meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
So, okay, this is, all right. So I'm glad to say that I'm no longer chair of the Finance Audit Committee.
We haven't had the motion. We haven't voted on it yet.
Okay, that's the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Right. You've heard the motion. Second?
Second.
Discussion. Having heard, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Like a pirate.
I just want you to say that in the fine print that he didn't say, Mr. Bowers, that Mr. Townsend will still be on the finance.
And I tried to get on.
It was part
you,
of,
Ron.
otherwise I would not have seconded the motion.
No, I need your help.
Yeah, no, I'm happy, pleased to be that, particularly during these times, yes. So, Mr. Chairman, that's my report.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And to the folks, to our three colleagues, I mean this, and I think we're going to see it in the press, but I just want to say to the whole board, and I've been quoted, Jerry has helped me, but she knows how I feel on this, and I feel very emotional. I've had the opportunity to be on this board for almost more than, right at 15 years. And 15 years, and this will be my second year term as a chairman. And I will tell you, I have absolutely no reservation looking any reporter or any camera or looking in a mirror and say, it is an honor to be a part of this group. I have never met and had the honor of serving with a group of people that's professional discipline and ethics and intellectual bandwidth is, I do not believe that anything in this world is by coincidence. I believe that there is a reason why this board is here and why you all were picked to be at this time. I think it is the leadership, but I think it is your intellectual bandwidth, but I think it is also the professional depth, discipline, and ethics that you bring. And I will feel, I'm just proud to be a part of it. So I think we've got a lot to go on. But I want to say it's just been an honor to be a part of this, and we are positioned right. We've got the leadership team, we have a CEO, but we have a board and a group of officers for the next year that are going to take us to where we need to be. Thank you to all of you.
Thank you.
Mr. CEO, it's your turn.
I have one brief announcement, Mr. Chairman, and I would like the board to join me in an early happy birthday to our chairman.
Another one?
Ron, right on cue.
That's all right. It's St. Patrick's Day, and there's always somebody around that will buy a drink on St. Patrick's Day, so it's a perfect birthday to have. Thank
Happy
you.
birthday.
Excellent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Point of order, my birthday's tomorrow.
Oh, boy, did you.
Year that you guys missed it.
That will not happen a third year.
Whoa.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
When he said March, I'm like, okay, I gotta say
All
that.
right, good.
Thanks very much.
Wow.
And that's all, Mr. Chairman. We covered a lot of ground today. Great team, and appreciate it. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a bittersweet, after I just said what I do it, I'm going to attempt to do this unemotionally because, as we all know, Tyler wears his feelings on his sleeve. I think. And do we have the?
Looks like you won.
It is bittersweet that we are saying goodbye to a colleague, to a leader, somebody that has done more, having spent a lot of times being nothing else, pretty face and a yellow tie, but I will tell you, in this case, of having a mentor and a coach. We have a resolution that I'd like to read. I don't want to ask you to stand up, Cynthia, but if you don't mind, let me read this. Whereas Cynthia B. Austin has served as a member of the Board of Directors of JEA from May 19th, 2006 until February 28th, 2014, and during that period served on the Executive Committee. And whereas she served as Vice Chair of the Board of Directors from March 1st, 2007 through February 29th, 2008, overseeing the initial phases of the board's policy governance transition. Whereas she served as chair of the board from March 2008 through March 2007, establishing the Audit and Finance Committee and the annual CEO evaluation process. And whereas she served as secretary of the board of directors from March 1st, 2012 through March 19th, 2013, helping guide JEA's strengthening of its financial position, thereby assuring strong bond ratings. And whereas she served as vice chair of the board of directors from March 20th, 2013, February 28th, 2014, providing her perspective of economic growth environmental stewardship, and most of all, community volunteering. Whereas her vision, her faith, we all know, foresight has been invaluable to the JEA by championing for customers, stakeholders, and her community, even when it was not popular and not easy. Whereas her lifelong passion for our community has assisted JEA in increasing the quality of life and the continued economic expansion of our region. The appreciation for all things JEA by this consummate woman and professional will be missed greatly by all of the JEA family. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Directors of the JEA that it hereby expresses its deep gratitude and appreciation to Cynthia B. Austin for her long and lasting contributions as a member of the Board of JEA, unanimously adopted on this 18th of day, February, signed Mike Hightower, Chair, and Helen Albee, Secretary. Madam Chair.
Very well said, Mr. Chairman. Can't leave room for anything anybody else has to say.
But I'm going to leave
It's a
it to you, Mr.
hackathon.
Chairman.
No, no.
Somebody needs to say it. Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you.
To be designated.
On that note, I would like to personally thank Ms. Austin for the wonderful role model she's been for those of us who are up and coming, and true also of our chairman, Mr. Hightower, and former chairman, Mr. Townsend. They've all really been wonderful in sharing knowledge and experience with us. But I think Ms. Austin just set a standard that we all will want to emulate going forward. Thank you.
I would say that in addition to being a good friend and a good colleague, you talk about her passion. I think she had most passion for the employees. She knows more of these employees than most of us up here know. And for that, we thank her. She's very sensitive. It's also a very quick study. And Cynthia, we're going to miss you. Thanks for your service.
Miss you.
Thank you.
Well, I guess it's my turn.
Yes.
First, I am amazed and in awe of this most beautiful, beautiful pottery and the statue that it represents. It's just amazing. I've read briefly about the woman who created it, and it certainly is an appropriate gift for me. This woman has traveled extensively and does pottery, and her work is, how does it say, reflects her inner spirituality and her love of travel and wonder. And that would certainly be an appropriate, very appropriate thing for me. I just think it's absolutely beautiful. I've been to Africa where I've seen, Egypt area where I've seen beautiful pieces. I didn't anticipate owning one, and I thank you all for that. Words are never hard for me, but today is hard. I have been here so long and have enjoyed it tremendously. I'm humbled and deeply appreciative of the words and the comments made by my colleagues. I am extremely proud to have served with you. It has been challenging to dive deep and really appreciate the nuances and the importance of the industry that we serve. It takes incredible engagement and commitment. And as I leave this agency, I don't worry about those I leave behind to run it. This group is well prepared, and you will need to be. You are facing new challenges, and you will deal with them as well as you always have. I just want to say that I applaud each of you. What we do in our daily work is tremendous, but what we do in terms of time, talent, and treasure to give to this board is tremendous. But I can't leave without speaking about another group of people and individuals that I applaud and believe truly are the success of the Jacksonville Electric Authority, and that is its employees, its linemen, its administrators, its everybody. It's senior staff, it's the administrators, it's the folks who come here day to day and come early and stay late to make this authority what it is. And I do think I know most of you. I hope that I get to know you now and always. Some of you have truly become friends of mine. I applaud this authority's employees because you truly are what makes it great. And I wish you all continued success. I'm not worried about JEA. I just want to thank you for the opportunity to have been a part of it. Thank you.
Well, so much for the plaques, huh?
On that note, unless there's anything, we are adjourned. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Mr.